The forgotten script. I was new to the whole town gathering idea. When I saw the flyer for a vintage book club, I didn't expect to be in a dimly lit living room that resembled an old-fashioned seance, but here I was. The space was small, with 4 antique chairs gathered around a wooden table, illuminated only by flickering candles scented with lavender and sage. 3 women greeted me: Eden, Mira, and Holly. They welcomed me like I was joining some sacred sisterhood, with wide, eager smiles. "Welcome, take a seat," Eden said warmly. "You're going to love this," Mira added, her eyes twinkling mischievously. "You're just in time," Holly chimed in, as though I was about to witness something profound. I sat down cautiously, still unsure about this club. They handed me a thick, dog-eared book with the title A Love Forgotten. The cover was cheesy, an idyllic mountain backdrop and 2 women, one laughing while the other looked longingly into her eyes. Not my usual genre. I preferred thrillers, the kind of books that keep you up at night wondering what's lurking in the shadows. When I said this to them, they chuckled. "Oh, but this isn't what it seems," Eden said with a knowing grin. "Give it a try, it's much more than just romance," Holly insisted. "You might find yourself absorbed," Mira added, a strange glint in her eyes. I reluctantly opened the book and began to read the first page. It was a simple setup: 2 women, June and Cassie, on a road trip through the Pacific Northwest. But just as I got comfortable, a strange gust of wind swept through the room, and suddenly everything around me blurred. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the living room anymore. I was sitting in the passenger seat of a beat-up old van, the scent of pine trees flooding the air as the towering mountains of Idaho whizzed past me. And in the driver's seat was Cassie, the same woman from the book cover, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, humming along to the radio. "Everything all right, June?" she asked, her voice familiar, even though I wasn't supposed to be June. But something about the situation felt off. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. Was this real? Before I could figure it out, the van pulled up to an old rustic diner in the middle of nowhere. Cassie grinned at me, as if we'd been here 100 times before, and I followed her inside. The diner smelled of coffee and pancakes, its walls adorned with faded photos of hikers and travelers who had passed through over the years. It was just us and the waitress behind the counter, an older woman who looked us over with a curious smile. "Same as usual, girls?" the waitress asked, her tone friendly but loaded with an odd familiarity. Cassie nodded, settling into a booth. I sat across from her, my mind spinning. What was this place? More importantly, who was I in this story? Before I could ask, Cassie spoke, her tone casual but loaded with meaning. "You know, June, I never thought we'd actually make this trip. All those years talking about it back in the city, and now, here we are." Her eyes met mine, full of warmth, but there was something beneath it. Something I couldn't quite place. The waitress brought over 2 plates of pancakes and coffee. I stared at my plate, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu. I wasn't supposed to be here, and yet everything felt oddly familiar. "Where exactly are we?" I asked, finally finding my voice. Cassie raised an eyebrow, as though confused by my question. "What do you mean? We've been planning this for years." I blinked, trying to process her words. But before I could respond, the world around me shifted again. The diner faded, and suddenly, we were standing by a crystal-clear lake at dusk. The reflection of the mountains shimmered in the water, and the air was cool, filled with the scent of pine and earth. Cassie stood beside me, her hands stuffed into her jacket pockets, gazing out at the lake. "Do you remember the last time we were here?" she asked softly. "We promised we'd come back when everything was settled. When we were ready." But I had no memory of this place. No memory of her. Who was I in this story? As I looked at Cassie, the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't here by choice. I was part of someone else's story, someone else's memories. This wasn't my life, it was June's. Suddenly everything clicked. The book, the eerie way the women had smiled at me in the book club. They had brought me here into a narrative that wasn't mine. And now I had to play along. Cassie looked at me expectantly, her expression soft, hopeful. I knew this was the part where I was supposed to say something profound, something that would resolve years of unspoken tension between us. But instead I looked away, my mind racing. "Do you love me?" Cassie asked, her voice barely a whisper, as though she already knew the answer. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I didn't love Cassie, not in the way she thought I did. But June did. And that's who I was now, wasn't it? A character in a love story I hadn't asked to be part of. I hesitated, unsure of what to say. But before I could answer, the world shifted again. I was back in the book club's living room, the candles flickering softly as if nothing had happened. Eden, Mira, and Holly sat across from me, their eyes wide with anticipation. "Well?" Eden asked, a sly smile tugging at her lips. "What did you think?" I stared at them, my heart still racing from the strange, surreal experience. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a book, that I had actually been in that story, living someone else's life. I need to borrow this," I finally said, clutching the book tightly to my chest. The three women exchanged knowing glances and smiled. "There's a sequel," Mira said softly, her eyes twinkling with mischief. I knew then that I had to go back, because this story wasn't over. "Not yet,"